Hello and welcome along to another episode of our weekly stadium review series, Review the 92. It's going to be a hard one this week. We'll get to that in a minute. But firstly, if you have missed any of the series so far, you can catch up with it in the eye above. My co-host Tom has joined me every week so far. And we continue today with Crawley. Now, the reason this is difficult is because we went to this ground before Crawley had ever played in the Football League, many years before we'd ever decided that we cared about the 92, and probably a few years before we knew that Luton were going to get back into the 92, which made this possible anyway. So if you're looking forward to this one, please put a thumbs up on it. And if at any point you can help us out at all, it would be greatly appreciated. But I will start, as always, with the stats for Crawley, which is Broadfield Stadium, now known as the People's Pension Stadium. It's a well-known stadium on my channel because my Dorking Wanderers team played there for about 6 years because we didn't have a stadium. However, it's also been named the Checkatrade Trophy Stadium between 2013 and 2018 and has had many sponsorships along the way. The stadium itself was built and opened in 1997, so not particularly old, which you might not have thought from going there, but obviously Crawley, a relatively modern club, particularly in their current form. The capacity is 6,134, and the record attendance, which was reached in an FA Cup tie against Reading in 2013, is 5,880. Obviously, the problem with Crawley's ground, it was built initially for non-league, and now at times, because of the police segregation and things that are required for big games, it can never be at its full capacity, which is unfortunate. But we went there, and I've had to actually put the date up on the screen for this one. It's that hazy a memory. On the 27th of February 2010, to watch Crawley Town v Luton Town in Luton's first National League season, or conference, or Blue Square Premier, or whatever it was called at the time.
Skrill bet.
Skrill, yeah, there was Skrill. No, I don't think Skrill was bet. I think it's Blue Square that were bet. And Skrill were something else.
Sending money, I think.
Yes.
Sending money to India.
Wiring money, yeah. So there was a bit of an interest in that game. Unfortunately, Luton lost it. There were over 1,000 Luton fans, and one of the facts that I wanted to check and have confirmed since is that it was one of many games when Luton were in the National League where, as away fans, we outnumbered the home fans, which says enough in itself. So, what do you remember initially about the game, the stadium, and the day? I know there are going to be certain bits of it that won't be too easy to remember, but thankfully I've got a couple of things to just about get me by.
Yeah, I just want to begin by saying apologies in advance if this is the worst episode yet.
It's over 10 years. We were teenagers.
Yeah, I did suggest maybe we skip Crawley and come back to it when we've done it and taken it in properly. As you said, I think possibly my first ever away game. Had nothing to really compare a football ground to other than the Emirates or Kenilworth Road. So, and as you said, we were 17 and 16 respectively. So it's a very foggy memory. And I think it was probably the interesting thing for me was probably my first experience of standing on a terrace, not having my own seat, which is like, I guess, a rite of passage for a football fan, standing on a terrace. So I'll always have that.
And to be fair, the way we do this 92, that should be one of the endearing features for this ground, I would imagine, to be fair.
Yeah, that's quite a cool quirk that it's got that the first time I ever stood on a proper, even though it's not old school, because you said 97, which I find surprising, as you said, it doesn't seem like it's younger than us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was 13 at the time when we were there. Wow.
Didn't feel it, did it?
No. But yeah, stood on like an old style concrete terrace without a seat, just with like a lean pole. Like, yeah, different experience.
And obviously, I guess at the time, Crawley were on their surge up the leagues. They had a bit of money behind them. They had Steve Evans in charge, a bit of a controversial figure. But
did they win the league that year?
Yes, took them to the Football League. So they were the side that pipped us. I say pipped, they won it quite comfortably in the end, I think. But for me, in terms of the day, there's a few things we need to get out of the way before we move on to the four main areas. And one, knowing after the longest episode last week, this will be the shortest. But also, we went via car with a fellow season ticket holder rather than public transport, though I have done the research to look into that. I have now, you'll be pleased to know, managed to find a ticket stub that said how much it cost, which is useful.
Kept that?
I don't know. I found loads from about 7-8 years ago, and I haven't got any of the modern ones, and I'll probably regret it one day. So obviously there are a few bits that we're not going to be as detailed on as normal, but let's start with atmosphere. Now, I guess the key is in the first statistic, which is the away fans outnumbered the home fans. Now, the away Luton fans created a very good atmosphere, but they were most of the fans in another team stadium, so I don't quite know what to do with this one.
No, I don't know if I'll have ever been to another game where the away fans outnumbered the home fans.
Because you weren't at many of the Luton games
I,
that season.
I didn't do a lot. Well, did I do many conference games
More
in later
towards the later
seasons?
years, yeah.
But yeah, that is quite crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? And it just shows you how big some
And that's the team that were winning the league that year. And it was near the end of the season.
Yeah, in the likes of Tranmere, Notts County, I guess, have had the same experience being huge teams in that league.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you'd imagine it would be a good atmosphere if there were two teams at the right end of the table, but I'm going to have to cough out and say it's been over a decade, and I don't remember that. I can only imagine that if Luton didn't win and weren't doing very well, that they weren't in good voice.
So, I mean, I can save you here because the atmosphere is the only thing I really remember quite well. And the reason I remember it quite well is it was a matter of 2 or 3 months after a striker called Matthew Barnes-Homer had joined the club. And I don't know if you remember, but we paid quite big money for him by non-league standards. And he turned up, was arguably overweight, didn't really appear to be the most mobile for whatever reason. He's had good spells at other clubs, so it might not have been a fitness thing. It might have been something else. So I don't want to just batter him for it. But it's fair to say the Luton fans spent most of that game slagging him off. And then he popped up with our goal, which was even more interesting. One of the few he scored in the end like that. So I remember the atmosphere being quite loud from the Luton fans, but it wasn't particularly a positive one. So again, that leaves me in a bit of a dilemma as to what to go for. But I'm basing it on the fact that we're judging the stadium, and that means we're judging the home fans. And in most of the others, we've judged the home fans. And although the fans that were there were quite vocal and it was a decent atmosphere, they were outnumbered by the away fans despite being top of the league, which is unacceptable. So I can only give it a very maximum of 5, and that's being generous, giving a bit to the Luton fans.
I'll have to copy you then. Yeah, I can't imagine it's the sort of club that has a die-hard support. I don't know the history, but I consider them to be like one of these new clubs that have found money and shut up the leagues without having much prestige, dare I say? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I guess it's kind of caught between London and Brighton, isn't it? That part of the world where they probably older fans would have gone either like maybe for a South London club like Crystal Palace.
And I guess that's the thing. At the time, they were in just regional leagues for 100 years before that until money got pumped in. You know, they're an old club. They're from the 1800s, but again, they're a non-league club the whole time. So it's hard to judge them on that higher level, and particularly now when we're saying in the 92, even at that point, they'd never been in a football league. So they hadn't been able to build that generation of fans, which they're probably just starting to do now as a League Two club. Yeah,
no fault of their own. They're on an upward trend, and that's good for them. But it does mean that they're not maybe as well supported. You said the maximum attendance they've had is only in the 5,000.
Yeah,
so that's not amazing. And that they were outnumbered by Luton fans back in 2010 when we went. So yeah, I think 5 must be a fair result.
Okay, I'm happy enough with that. And then we move on to location. Now, we've got to be fair-ish on this one because we went via car, so it was very easy for us. I have looked at the travel routes for our normal style of going to the ground now. Should we go again, it'd be about a 25-minute walk from Crawley train station. It's nearer a suburb called Broadfield, as you would expect, Broadfield Stadium. But
makes sense.
There's a lot of greenery around. It's not particularly unpleasant, but I guess isn't one of the endearing features for us when they're in built-up areas and it's part of the community. It's sort of stuck between 2 suburbs of a town there, but I can't say there was anything horrendous about it.
No, but then almost a one-off, isn't it? That we kind of got chauffeured from door to door. Really, I think we parked very close.
Yeah.
And that just never happens really for us. So again, it's quite. I feel like I can't give a good answer for any of these our 4 aspects of it. But again, not using public transport is a.
But I feel like this could end up being a good thing for us because this is probably the first and maybe even the only ground, given the time frame, depending on when we go back to football, that we will have comparisons of two completely different types of away experience. So we've got a non-league one where you're driven completely to the ground, you walk in, you walk out, and that's it. And then you've got the public transport, which is more about the day, the occasion, and everything that goes with it. And obviously there'll be an established football league club next time we go there.
Yeah, it would be good to go again soon and do it properly.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy it would be, like getting the train. I presume there's a change in London if you're going from Luton. I'm talking obviously from a Luton perspective, and see how they develop. See if they've got a bigger fan base than last time.
I think it's fair to say when we went there in the National League, like, they didn't even have the minimum required seating. They had to do that after they get promoted because there's obviously rules about League Two. It was almost all terracing back then. And it will have changed a bit. Obviously, there'll be a lot more sponsorship. There'll be all the EFL stuff in there as well. So it's one of the ones that's probably going to be the biggest change. And I guess the question is you can ask us is, are we cheating because we went to that game when it wasn't an EFL game?
Yeah, maybe some of the purists doing the 92 would actually say you shouldn't count it until you've been to Crawley as a league club. I think that's quite harsh, but.
And we've got to bear in mind that, we've got about 30, 35 clubs that we've been to together. And who knows if we're going to be back at football in 35 weeks. So I don't think we can afford to skip one at this point, can we?
No. No, that's a good point. I did think we should skip Crawley, but you did convince me that we probably should do it, even though it is over, as we said, a decade ago.
And I think we'll eventually get to the ones that we went to separately, and we'll be comparing experiences at this point as well. I guess Fulham being the most recent one for you. But Crawley for location, I am happy to give it a standard 6. I can't rate it down because, as you say, we were essentially chauffeured to the car park outside the ground or the streets around it. And 25 minutes walk from the main train station as a public transport one, we'd never complain about anyway, really. So
no. 20, 25 minutes. That's
what being harsh.
That's what you kind of expect, isn't it? A 25-minute walk. But we didn't do that walk, and we don't know the ins and outs. And I don't want to be critical, but at the same time, I can't be complimentary. And 6, like you said, 6 is just average, isn't it? So
we did say we were going to need help in the comments. So people can give us their own opinions on this, and we'll take the viewers' scores into account of this one. Although I'm guessing Crawley, based on its record attendance being 5,000 and something, there's going to be a smaller pool of people that can help us for this one. But let's move on to value. You obviously will have no idea how much this cost, but I have got a ticket stub.
No, go on in. I'm intrigued. Tell me.
Terraced prices for the day, £13. So obviously in 2010 or the first National League season, a lot of the grounds were around that price. Inflation gives us a bit of a warped view over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, it was in the middle of a recession, wasn't it? So there's a few things to take into account. Is £13 bad? Is it average? I don't think it's a bad price.
And can I just make the point there? We were still teenagers. Were we not eligible for a discounted ticket? Did we not get?
So the ticket stub, adult price is £13. I'm comparing it to the same as all the others.
Okay, right.
So the price that we paid was £10, but adult prices is what we have to go by.
Just thinking. We were still in full-time education at that point.
We were in under 18s.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it would be fair to give our under 18s price for that.
No, I get I get the point. I was just checking. My heart stopped. I got ripped off that badly? Did I? 10 years ago. Okay, so.
Sorry, I didn't make that clear whatsoever.
13 quid. You see, that's 10 years ago. And it was 2 years after the it's a big recession. You always I don't mind. I'm kind of more of the leaning towards. I like safe standing. I like the idea of I would prefer to stand at games, but you're more of an old fart. You like your seat, and you do feel you feel like you get ripped off, don't you? When the price isn't considerably lower.
I get that. I guess the difference there is at the time, I have checked, there was a roof that largely covered the stand, which is the thing that I complain most about at Accrington because we got absolutely drenched.
Yeah, that should be a minimum requirement.
I don't actually think it's that bad. I'm happy to give that a 7 out of 10. And I guess bearing in mind the fact that we paid a tenner as under 18s also is a very good price as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it's non-league football.
But it's the top two, I guess, at the time, isn't it? They wouldn't have had a more expensive game all year.
Yeah, if they did like category pricing, I don't know if that was a thing back then, but yeah, I presume Luton would have been the most expensive ticket in the league.
And I guess we're going on that. Their average home gate was just over 1,000, or maybe even 1,000, because it was probably lower for other games, not Luton. Were they, as much as it is, pricing it up to take advantage of the fact that thousands of Luton fans will go?
Yeah, and you have given the information now that you weren't going to share that we did pay £10, which that's good of them. Yeah, I guess I'll give it a 7 as well. I'm just going to copy everything you say today. It seems
Very nice. We're going to be in
just
agreement.
about.
I don't think that'll happen next week, unfortunately. We're Crew next week, I believe.
Vivid memories of Crew, so we can actually.
I remember Crew. Crew's an easy one.
Share our opinions properly.
Last and not least is character. Now, it's a modern ground. It was 13 years old at the time. It was largely terraced. It didn't have any hugely redeeming features. What I do remember is that we entered, and it brings me to a point I haven't mentioned because it didn't really fit into any of the other points. But whatever. Just rather than the behind the goal terrace which we were in, the entrance to it, and there was only one, was on the main stand at the end. So like the main stand ended before the end of the side of the pitch or whatever, and it was just like a gated entry in, and then you just walked round, which is proper non-league. Like I love that stuff. That's proper old school. It's one step away. You can imagine when that was first built, you could probably just walk around the whole thing for games. And there was there just inside the door, again, a bit like we mentioned at Charlton, it caused some queuing problems, is just to the left of the entrance is where they had the refreshment stand. But I do remember having a borderline exquisite chicken balti pie, which, as you know, is always going to be an important thing for me.
Did I have one?
I don't think you did. It was just after you took your first step, I believe. Or was it the year before?
No, I was still ate meat. That's how long ago it was.
There you go. So that's why your memory's bad.
That's how long ago. Jesus Christ.
So for me, character-wise, the stadium itself didn't have a great deal, but it had because it was built to be a non-league ground, it had the non-league features, and I quite like that. We used to go on a podcast on Tuesday and Wednesday nights to random non-league games, and I do like that sort of stuff. So I don't want to give it any lower than a 7 because it's got those sort of features that I like in a non-league ground.
You have a much better memory than I do.
Maybe in football.
On this particularly, so I'm gonna have to just play it safe with another 6. There are some weird things I do remember though. Like I just want to prove to anyone watching this that I did actually turn up and have my eyes open.
People would judge whether you were there at this point.
Yeah. I remember seeing a sign like "Get a Red Devils burger," and I found out their nickname's the Red Devils. I didn't know that. Copying United, and I think Black Eyed Peas tune was blaring out over the tannoy system.
I remember the speaker system being quite bad actually. If I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think there's a big Black Eyed Peas song, one of the hits at the time.
I guess we can look at this the other way. Yes, because we went a number of years ago. By the way, our overall scores will be in the bottom. Let us know what you think and have your own opinion as well because we need your help. But I guess we can look at this the other way. Yes, it was years ago. Yes, we haven't got the most vivid memories. But we could argue the opposite in the 92, which is we went before it was a thing with Crawley. Before you all wanted to jump on the bandwagon, we'd already been. That's my argument.
Yes, I think we do need to go again though.
Yes.
As someone who's really grown to love going to away games and definitely do prefer to going to home games, the fact that Crawley was my first experience and Luton did lose the team I was supporting. So, but it's
the scores aren't bad based on that.
I still got a taste for it, obviously. Something about the day. I enjoyed the whole performance of leaving the town and going somewhere new. And even though you're not normally at an away game, you feel like you're outnumbered, and there's something special in that. Obviously, it's not quite the same when Luton fans actually were out there in better numbers than the home support. But yeah, I guess that's the kindest thing I can say is that after going to that game, I must have enjoyed the experience that much that I thought I'm going to get into this, and I've grown to love ground hopping since then.
And in that sense, you've probably hugely underrated Crawley because you went there having not been to an away game before, and now you're trying to do the 92. So it must have had more of an impact on you than you consciously recognise.
I must have enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy seeing the team you're supporting lose. But yeah, I'll finish on a positive note. That's something I'll take away from it. That first time on a terrace, first away game, and I've become quite obsessed, you could say, trying to do the 92. That's kind of an obsession of getting to away grounds. So yeah, cheers, Broadfield Stadium, Checkatrade Stadium, whatever you
People's
call it.
Stadium.
Whatever you call. I wonder what it's called when we went. Do we know the official name when we went?
It must have still been Broadfield. I mean, they were non-league. They wouldn't have been ramming for sponsors then, would they? So
No.
can only assume.
Shout out to that stadium.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably a good way to finish to say that it was a good experience despite the result and that. And we have pretty much said that we are more than happy to go back in an official EFL capacity to watch a proper game at some point. So don't be too harsh on our ratings because the memories, we're getting old now and it was 10 years ago. So give us a little bit of leeway. But if you've been, let us know, help us down in the comments. What are the things that you remember most from the day? And are you like us? Did you go before it was a big thing to do the 92? Because Crawley weren't even a Football League side. But if you did enjoy this episode, please put a thumbs up on it. Let us know down in the comments what you thought. Subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes from this series, as well as daily Football Manager videos too. Thank you very much to Tom for joining me as always.
My pleasure. Cheers.
And we'll see you next time.